Welcome back to the Make It Mastermind podcast. And this week we've got another guest, as always. We've got George King, probably more known for the crazy climb that he did of climbing on top of the Shard with no safety equipment. How you doing, man?
I'm very well, mate. Very well.
Thanks for coming on and talking to us this morning. And also a quick shout out to our listeners out there. If you are listening, make sure to hit the subscribe button and check out some of the videos that we're doing at the moment. So, George, for some of our listeners that may have never heard of you before, can you just give us a little brief intro, a few little words about yourself, and we'll kick off from there?
Of course. So my name is George King. I'm 20 years old. It's quite hard to categorize what I do. Some would call me extreme athlete, stuntman, climber. But at the end of the day, I'm just a person with a passion, and I pursue it with obsessive focus. Like you rightfully said, in 2019, you probably know me as the person who climbed the Shard. Despite climbing the Shard and not getting arrested, 3 months after that, the private prosecution was taken out, and I was handed a 6-month sentence at one of the toughest jails in the UK, and I served 3 months of that sentence, and this is my story.
Fuck, that's crazy, man. Like, where do you even get into there? Do you know what? Let's get into climbing then. So,
Yeah.
have you been into climbing since you was a young kid, or is that something that you picked up?
Yeah. Well, I mean, really, it actually started with long distance running. I was more interested about the power of the mind, and where long distance running ties in is that I was not necessarily interested with running 3 miles or 6 miles. I was interested in running ultra marathons and ultra running. I was interested in how far I could push the mind. So that idea of controlling the mind and controlling the willpower very closely correlates to free solo climbing and stunts, of which I do today. So it actually, when people see me, they expect I'm some sort of climbing prodigy, but really it started with long distance running and also boxing in my early teens. It was the element of controlling the mind which was more interesting to me.
What was it about the mind that interested you from it? What's your earliest
Uh,
memory of being intrigued by it?
well, really, it was a fight or flight response. So, I mean, the first time I experienced a fight or flight response was when I climbed halfway up this climb. So I was exploring in a wood, and there was a scout camp in the woods. I wasn't meant to be there, but I went and saw this climbing wall, and I climbed halfway up, and I got stuck. And whilst I got stuck, I started to panic, and I felt the adrenaline course through my veins, and I started to tremble, I started to sweat, and my vision started to go blurry. And I felt like I was there for 15 minutes. I'm probably only there for 4 or 5 minutes, but I started to control that fear and control that adrenaline, and suddenly I saw something completely profound. And that was when I harnessed the power of the fight or flight response. I managed to complete the climb. But that stuck with me. That was my first time I really experienced adrenaline at its full force and what it can do to your body and mind. And that's just allowed me to explore these different physical challenges where adrenaline is attached to it.
Nice. It's how old were you when that happened?
I was around 12 years old.
12 years old, so it's quite early. So after that, so through like your early teenage years, what did you start to
Yes.
what did you
So I actually started taking boxing really competitively, just amateur boxing. And that was around when I was like 14, 15, 16. So that was my main focus. And the thing what I found interesting about that was on my first fight, I was well trained. I was ready to go, but I crumbled under pressure and I lost that fight. And whilst I was looking at all the other fighters who fought at my club and all the experienced fighters, I saw that they were so calm, both in the dressing room, weighing room, up until walking into the ring, doing the fight. Everything about their psyche and the way they did things was completely done in a calm and controlled manner. And that got me thinking, like, it's not necessarily skill which is letting me down, but the pressure. So I actually learned to sort of control fear through the boxing. So, like I said, with the long distance running, found out about willpower, and the boxing, I learned how to control the fear. And then with that climbing wall incident, I learned how to harness the fight or flight response. So these three things were my own little university to go off and do the big climbs and big stunts, which I began to do when I was began to take seriously when I was around 16, 17 onwards. But before that, I was still climbing, but not as seriously as it was when I was 16, 17 and onwards.
When you were talking about them three aspects, did you research any people like throughout history or that are around how to kind of?
That's the thing. That's the kind of magic of all this, is it's not like you can get a how-to guide to climbing the Shard or how-to guide to being a daredevil. So I've had to develop my own strategies to be able to do these things. So I've pioneered my own little path in that way. But I don't have idols, I don't have icons, but there is someone I do look up to, and this person called Wim Hof. He's broken multiple world records of swimming under the ice and holding, being immersed in, ice bath water for multiple time. And I'm pretty inspired by him to learn his method, his breathing method, and I use that before doing climbs and stunts to keep a controlled state of mind.
So on that then, kind of to try, because me and James, we also do, on the side of this podcast, we've got a boxing podcast that we do, and we also do a lot of boxing. Yeah. So I kind of understand what you mean with the whole fear, mental aspect, when to be able to stay calm in a pressured and chaotic situation. Yeah. So with things like the Wim Hof breath, which again, me and James are aware of, like, do you believe in the whole mind and body connection? Well, you obviously do, but can you talk to us about a little bit more about that and how you've been able to grow and cultivate that and to keep that laser focus, which I imagine you need doing something under pressure like that?
Absolutely, mate. I mean, something which I want to touch on, which I've experienced more than anything, is visualization. So when I climb the Shard, obviously you can't just go and climb it or practice half of it or anything. You just, once you go and do it, you're going to have to go and do it. So something which I did was I visualized the climb going from start to finish perfectly, 5 times in the morning and 5 times at night when the subconscious is most in tune. And by doing that, when I did the climb, there was something familiar about it, because when you visualize, new neurons are created. So my brain was processing what I do as if I'd been there before, when obviously I hadn't. So that is just simply the power of the mind and body connection, that you just through visualization, my body was just working on instinct, just because in my mind I prepared it so many times for within the last year. So yeah, answer to your question, the mind and body are very much linked, and it is absolutely vital that sports athletes and I mean anyone really, from businessmen to athletes to medical professions, take the preparation of the mental sides of things as importantly as their primary preparation.
Absolutely. What was the first memory of, when did you first try visualization? When did you first hear about it? And when did you first implement it and realize, oh, fuck, this shit works?
Yeah, well, to be honest, I only found out about it. I mean, I must have, when I was sort of 18, I found out about it because I started doing a lot of stunts on cranes, handstands and hang off cranes, and balancing on very, very narrow beams. And when you do something like that, you can't just go and do it. You can practice on the ground, but you can't. There is something very different from balancing on a beam, where if you fall down and it's only 3 meters in comparison to 300 meters. So I would go on a slack line, so one of those tightrope walking, tightrope based sort of lines, and I would visualize that I'm 300 meters up in the air as opposed to 2 meters up in the air. And by just visualizing that, it made me more comfortable. So when I did go to 300 meters high, I felt like I'd been there before, and it felt comfortable and it felt fluid. So yeah, when I was around 18, that's when I first sort of saw the power of visualization. as something which is really important to preparation.
And do you know this, like this, I don't even know what to call it, a theory or this like visualization itself? Like, where did you find that at the time? Was it just something you came across, or you thought, oh, it'd be a good idea to practice that?
Yeah, I mean, I've always been really inquisitive about everything in life. I'm just always curious. And for me, I've always been trying to find holistic ways to prepare and train. So yeah, I just kind of thought of it up on the spot, really. I just thought maybe this could prepare me. So yeah, that's the way I did it.
It's amazing to hear how young you were to start to have all these thoughts. Like myself and Julian were 28, and we've only started to be kind of immersed in these kind of conversations due to the podcast, really.
Yeah.
What is the circle of people around you? Like, could you actually fire these ideas at your friends or your family?
Yeah. I mean, interesting enough, like most of my friends are my friends. They're not actually climbers or urban explorers or stuntmen or anything like that. I keep a fine line between my social life and I live like kind of like a double life. I have the normal 20-year-old and then the obsessive mental 20-year-old, two different people. But those sort of friends, there are quite a few individuals who have got the same sort of mindset as me, so I can bounce those ideas off. But really, it wasn't that what originated my curiosity. I think it was just an innate thing. I think everyone's born different. Some people are wired to do pragmatical physics equations, whereas others are wired to be creative and paint paintings. So I was just wired. I'm born innately to be wired in a sort of philosophical, curious way, and I've just doubled up on my strengths. And of course, many other weaknesses: ADHD, dyslexia, insomnia, and various other like learning difficulties. But I can have that sort of curiosity based strength. So it does work in my favor.
It sounds like you'd be a nightmare to parent because you'd probably just think, "Oh, why not?" about everything.
Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Yeah, you got to ask my mom that, but but yeah, no, I do agree. But at the same time, I'm respectful. I am respectful of it. I mean, I'm very, very careful as to how I sort of approached or letting my family know about the climbing, all that sort of stuff. I actually had to live a double life, hiding it all from my family when I was sort of 16 to 18, 19. Then I had to tell my mum over dinner because I made the news for doing the world's tallest climbing wall, and yeah. So I mean, I've had to hide a lot of things coming up, but they respect it, but in a healthy way.
So the world's tallest climbing wall. When did you conquer that?
And how tall was that as well?
It must have been. It's not too tall. Must be like 150 feet. And it's in Groningen, Netherlands. It's called the Excalibur. And I was 18 when I did that. And just a week before that, actually, I went to a place in Brighouse, just off Leeds, where I scaled the UK's tallest climbing wall without ropes or harness. So yeah, I did those both 5 days, and that was actually after I left my last A-level exam, my sociology exam, halfway through, so I could get in the car and get to Leeds because it's a big drive up from south, so I could do the climb. I mean, I think that would answer your question about how I felt about school, but yeah.
Oh, nice, man. So after you were saying you've been doing some like climbs on cranes and stuff like that, so can you like give people a bit of an idea of how you kind of built up to
Yeah.
climb the SHARD?
Yeah, so I mean, you got the SHARD, and it's not like you would just go and do the SHARD. You start off small and it's incremental progression. So what started from climbing trees incrementally came up to climb the SHARD, and along that journey, I would start to scale scaffolding, rooftops, and cranes. and it just, I mean, for the normal person walking past a crane, it's just simply a crane, but for me, it's just a super tall playground apparatus. So I would scout the area, understand where the security is, understand where the sensors are, understand where the security cameras are, examine my entry, examine my escape, and it's all this sort of strategy, which is really exciting and thrilling to me. And then I would infiltrate the site and sneak around, get up the crane, get to the top, and then get down. And then what started of that, increase the height, and then I would start to do stunts on them, and yeah, just constantly pushing my boundaries. But at the same time, keeping within my own limits. I'm not a dickhead. I'm not a twat. I know my limits, right? I know that that if I'm trained and mentally ready for something, I can do it. I won't just go off and do it just because my ego lets me. So there's a fine line between stupid and responsible. Even though what I can perceive to be doing can be seen as crazy, it is responsible.
So with that, then, do you know, with, I guess to a degree, knowing your own limit and like planning these things ahead of time, like how did you get to that stage? Is it just something that's been built in you, or have you had an experience in the past where you feel like you've maybe pushed yourself a bit too fast?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I definitely have. And there is this aspect of complacency when you do what I do. If you do something, a dangerous activity regularly, it will become normalized. And when it becomes normalized, you start to not acknowledge the fear anymore. And then therefore you become complacent. And that is a very fucking dangerous thing to do, because then you're not experiencing the fear, and therefore you are just simply just going along with it with no fear, no awareness, and silly mistakes happen. It's interesting, a lot of people don't actually die on their biggest stunt they've ever done. You know, you look at Philip Petit, who walked between the twin towers, or Alex Honnold climbing El Cap free solo. You know, they survived those sort of things. It's normally those small less difficult tasks, which are still extremely dangerous if they go wrong, which kill people. I know enough of people who have died from climbing cranes or scaffolding because it's easy, but because they have got complacent and stopped acknowledging the fear, because the activity is normal to them, then silly mistakes happen and then they die. So yeah, it's a fine line between acknowledging the risk, having control, and understanding the fear.
It's amazing to even listen to, because you've got that whole like understanding the situation, managing the fear, but then acknowledging that it is fucking dangerous, but then having to somehow compartmentalize that into a part of your mind that allows you to still
Yeah.
be relaxed enough to do it. It's like a big oxymoron, like a big battle.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I completely agree. But I see fear as like a superpower, like I touched on before. When you harness fear, you kind of become a superhuman. You could see yourself do things which you never thought were really possible for your body to do. Your vision becomes tunneled vision. It becomes more sharp. Your muscle endurance increases. Your strength increases. Your breathing capacity increases. Your senses are heightened. Fear can make you this superhuman. And if you can sort of harness that fear, then you will see yourself do something which your body and mind didn't think were possible. It was actually when I was in prison, walking around the wing for the first time. I was so nervous, um, and I and in that moment, I began to sort of fake it to make. I began to convince myself that I'd been to prison so many times before, and then I was well known in the prison, I was well known in the wing, and all that sort of stuff. And this false accusations I was putting upon myself sort of faked my confidence and allowed me to harness the fear which I was having. So from going from scared walking around the wing, I suddenly became hyper aware of my surroundings and super confident just by convincing myself that this fear is not is irrational, and that really this is just my body getting ready, and I can use this fear to my advantage. So yeah, I think it's very important that people have fear, and for anyone to say that they're fearless is simply chatting nonsense.
Yeah, do you know what? Well, again, we see it on the front line as well a little bit. We go to quite a lot of boxing shows, and we've got
Yeah,
some friends there, and they all admit to us all the time. You know, before they even get into that ring, they say, "Yeah, I'm scared, I'm nervous,"
yeah,
but
yeah,
they're still cool and calm and collected to go do what they have
yeah,
to do
yeah,
on there.
yeah.
So I get what you mean with that.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. Yeah, I think it's really important. Like fear, you want to have a bit of fear. It keeps you sharp. It really does, because it kind of, yeah, like I said, it just supercharges you. It really does supercharge you. But yeah, you need fear.
So making
I
our way towards I guess towards to you going into jail, which I want to kind of dive
Yeah.
into a bit more detail. But with the shard, then, so how long did it take you to plan that, to case it, to have a look, and to plan the climb?
Yeah, yeah. So it was years of dreaming. When I was 13 years old, I first saw the Shard on a school art trip. I'm from Oxford. I was in London, and I see the Shard, and for some weird reason, I felt my destiny was written in that single moment. I thought, I don't know what I'm gonna do with it. I'm gonna climb it based on like it was gonna happen. Something was gonna happen. That was back when I was 13 years old, and I first took the first step to my preparation 1 year before doing the climb. I did the climb at 8th of July, just around summertime. The year before that, I took my mum and my grandmother up to one of the restaurants in the Shard called the Ting Restaurant, and I looked around it and I took some photos, and I could try and understand the exterior of the building. So got those photos, and I needed to find a way to start the climb. You know, I could see that it's possible, but I need to go and find a way to actually understand how I can get onto the building. And I made a month later, I went to London and I looked at the base building, and my initial response was completely impossible. I don't know if you've been to the Shard before, but it's surrounded not only with security cameras and security, but in order to get to the point where you have to climb, it's 15 meters above ground. Like this is absolutely impossible. And as I'm going back to Leighton, East London, where I was staying at that current time, I was like, impossible, impossible, and I whip out my laptop and I go on Google Earth. I'm looking around it, and I see a possible opening, a possible chance, a possible entry. I think, right, this could be it. And then from there on, I just entered a complete state of obsession, and just focus and flow. And I would just over that time, I must have done over 100 recce's, gathering intelligence. Some involved disguises, because the security of the Shard is extremely it's one of the best in the world. It's extremely good, and if they see the same sort of person going day in and day out, looking at the Shard, they're going to infer pattern recognition. They're going to stop me. They're going to see who I am and give me a restraining order. So I had to go in disguises. One of the disguises I had, I would be sports kit, um, protein shake bottle. I'll go up, I'll stretch on a pillar. I'd see that it goes from my elbow to my wrist, for example. I'll go home, measure that, and that's the measurement of the day, and that's it. And that would just continuously go on and go on and go on. Other disguises: suit and tie and briefcase, phone call, pretend to be on the phone looking at certain areas, wig, casual gear, yeah, so different disguises. And then I also had to know what the congestion was like before I did the climb. So I would spend all night in London Bridge Station, from 12 a.m. to 6 a.m., pretending to be drunk on a bench, keeping one eye open, and basically taking note of every single thing which is happening in London Bridge Station at that time. For example, 2 a.m. train goes by, 2:05 cleaner goes from platform 9 to platform 8, 4 a.m. security goes from hut A to hut B. And basically the purpose of doing this was that over the course of doing it on different nights, I would have a list of data of movements and congestion reports, and then I'd make a correlation where there is no movement on a particular day to find the best time to do the climb, which was 5:07 a.m. on a Monday morning. So that was all the sort of gathering intelligence side of things. On top of that, of course, there was the physical side of things. You've got to be well trained, you've got to have endurance, you've got to have strength, you've got to have technique. So of course I was climbing a lot as well. And then of course we touched on the visualization thing. One thing I would do on top of doing the sort of visualizing 5 times in the morning, 5 times at night, seeing the climb go perfectly, was that I would do it in ice cold water. So I'd fill my bath with ice and water, and I'll jump in to the water. Now, when you jump into an ice bath, I don't know if you have before, you automatically go into a state of shock, state of sensory overload, as your mind fixes on solely the moment. It's a survival response. So when I jump into the cold water and do that, that exact same state is very similar to the state which I would experience by climbing the Shard. So therefore, by conditioning myself in that state, it makes the state whilst climbing the Shard more controllable. So I would visualize the climb going perfectly whilst in the ice bath, whilst my mind was still trying to remain focused on solely in the moment. And by doing that, it made me more comfortable about the motions I will be receiving when I eventually do the building. So that was one of the mental sides. Got the mental sides of preparation, got the physical sides of preparation, and then you got the gathering intelligence and more intellectual sides of the preparation. They all come together to form a challenge which is far more complex than just doing a climb. It becomes something much more strategical in itself. And then come 8th of July, I did the climb around 5 or 7 a.m. Monday morning.
Wow, that's crazy, man. Just to touch on something you were saying there, do you know with the ice baths, how long were you doing those for, and how long were you actually immersed in the ice water trying to control your thoughts in there?
Yeah, so I mean, I actually did it for around 10 minutes. That was my cut-off time. The thing about ice baths is that the more you do it, the more conditioned your cardiovascular system becomes to the cold water. It's like weight training. It's like bicep curls for the veins of your body. They become stronger, dilating and restricting. Yeah, so what started from 2 minutes, I eventually, via progressive overload, got to around 10 minutes of in the ice bath.
That's insane, man. But the side, so me and James started. Well, that blows our cold showers out the water, the ice baths. But
yeah,
that's something that we've implemented to, like you say, like to start to callous the mind and become mentally stronger with that. And I have seen a benefit in doing that.
Oh, absolutely, mate. I think the ice baths, they're not only good for sports recovery, but there's just mental resilience training. Every single cell in your body is screaming for you to jump out of that ice bath. But if you could just tap into that inner psyche, you could just grit it out and push through it. And that's kind of the magic of it. I think it should be generally for mental health patients. Fuck the prescription drugs which they're giving them, prescribe them exercise and ice baths, and I can assure you that 80% of people who are suffering from depression and anxiety are simply just not in touch with their true selves, and have just got out of touch with what humans really are. And humans are hunter-gatherers. At the dawn of time, we are simply people out in the wild, killing animals, exercising, immersed in the elements, and you know, that's what we're meant to be doing. But you know, given the current climate of social media, and just quick media, people just develop these anxiety and depression issues when really they're just out of touch with their true selves. So yeah, ice fast to the one, absolutely.
Do you think as like a society we're quite soft now?
I completely agree with that. I think we live in something called the Love Island generation. Some call it the snowflake generation, but I call it the Love Island generation because the passive engagement in social media and shows like Love Island are making people weak. They're getting men getting in touch with the feminine sides of things when they're heterosexual, you know, doing eyebrow pedicures, makeup and all that sort of stuff, just because they're seeking physical attractiveness, compliments, and possibly social media appreciation as well. People are interested in immediate gratification, you know, watching Love Island, going on social media, as opposed to immersing themselves in challenges. Personally, I believe the only way you're going to grow emotionally, spiritually, physically, mentally is out of your comfort zone in challenges. And I feel we've lost that with this generation. Everything is so fucking easy at the moment. Everything is so easy for anyone, but still people are complaining. And I think this coronavirus will actually change a lot of people's mindsets who thought everything was so simple and easy, when really it can go you know, upside down at any given point. But yeah, I feel people. I mean, I mean, health and safety rules as well. There was once a time when there was boxing in schools, and I think that's just such a great idea for kids to channel aggression and energy into a positive sport like boxing. Is just such a good thing to do. But health and safety these days is limiting so many people from reaching their true potential. So yeah, this generation has got very soft, and hopefully, I don't know where we'll be going, but at this rate, I don't see much progress, unfortunately.
No, I agree with that. I definitely think growth definitely comes from outside the comfort zone, and you see a lot of people going traveling, a lot of people doing challenges, but it feels like the mass, that's still not available to the mass, and I think that's something everybody should be involved in, like you say.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
have to grow.
I do agree. I've just noticed it says remaining meeting time 3:43 minutes. Is that okay?
Oh yeah, do you know what? We don't pay for the for the
Oh yeah, that's
upgraded
good.
Zoom, so it will cut off in
That's
3
right.
minutes. What we'll do is we'll call you back.
Yeah, that's
if
fine.
we
That's
do go
fine.
off.
That's fine. That's fine. That's all good.
I'll call you back now if you want.
Yeah, do you know what? Let's do that now.
Let's do that.
We're back. Boom. So where did we get
Brilliant.
to, guys?
So again, where are we?
Love Island generation.
Oh yeah. Yeah. The Love Island generation. Yeah.
But you kind of like, I'd say we're all kind of in that generation, like between our age range. Like I'd say myself and Julian are coming out of it more, but then you still see people our age that still tagging onto it, like still clinging onto it, like doing it for like maybe superficial reasons. And we've talked about it with other people, and it's like at some point people don't realize that they're going to be 40, they're going to be the last person that's still in the club or
yeah.
That's when you're going to have real fucking problems in your life.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think. Wait, can you hear me? All okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, good. Yeah, I agree with that, mate. I think the reason people, so many people, you know, race home to watch Love Island are just constantly addicted to social media and live a very restricted life and just live in the clutches of mediocrity is simply because of the mechanism of conformity. People are sheep, you know. They generally, if everyone else is trending, watching Love Island or following a trend of something of you know, reality TV or passive engagement on social media, they generally just will continue doing it because everyone else is doing it. And then, like you said, they'll get so used to it that once they come to 40, 50, and they're the only person in the club, only sort of 40-year-old in the club, then those problems really start setting in. But I think, yeah, people should wake up to the fact that the only way you're going to grow is through challenges out of your comfort zone.
Yeah, you talk about conformity, so it kind of ties in pretty well. So you've always had this, like, it seems like you've always had this, like, kind of like free spirit, free nature, like go and push your boundaries, go and challenge yourself. So what was it like to be then locked up, have to be told what to do, when to, all that's when you were in prison, when you were put in prison?
Yeah. So actually, it wasn't too bad because I kind of turned it on its head. When I was in my cell, I was actually locked up for like 22 hours a day. But I had a pen, I had some paper, I had books, I was able to exercise, so I was fine. I was able to, like, I was just accepted what the situation was, that I'm gonna have to be here for 100 days or so, and just thought, right, if I'm gonna be stuck in a cell with pen and paper, I might as well write a book. So that's why I just that became my passion, that became my escapism, that became my everything. But for people who don't have that and go to prison, it's a massive problem, because the only way they're going to escape when they're locked in a cell for so long is drugs, and the number one drug in prison is spice, which is a horrible drug. You only got to look at it in the news, the media. But simply, if you smoke that sort of stuff, you either turn psychotically hyperactive or just become a zombie. So and it's just simply a downward spiral. And I'm sure most of the suicides within prison are as a result of drugs such as spice. So for me, it was okay. I could just get on with writing. And yeah, that's the way I dealt with the situation.
And like, what was it like when you found out that the SHARD was prosecuting you for that? Do you know, you said it was 3 months after the initial climb. So did you think, like, what the fuck? Like, did you expect it or what?
Well, I so before, when I was preparing to climb the SHARD, I knew that prison was possibly on the table, and I was like, right, if I go to prison, it's worth it. For me, that was just a success fee. I'm okay with prison. I'm happy to do the building if it means that. But when I climbed the SHARD and I got to the top, I didn't get arrested, and I was let go after 30 minutes, and it was simply given a slap on the wrist by the police. I thought that was over. I was like, there's no way that just, like, I'm going to go to prison. Like, at most, so I knew I'd have a civil court case, just which is a private court case. At most, community service, maybe a fine. Highly doubt a suspended prison sentence out of the window. So I go to the courtroom, and I remember sitting in the court, and immediately after 25 minutes, I was like, right, I'm definitely going to prison. Because the way the judge was feeding off the SHARD solicitor's information and dismissing my solicitor and barrister's information on such a level, it was like the judge was so passionate that he was going to enforce power on this injunction which was served on me, and try and put me in prison. And yeah, the court case went from 10:30 to 12. At 12, he was like, right, I'm going to go away for 2 hours, and I'll come back and I'll give the verdict. And I went away, had my last meal with my family, and then I came into the courtroom, and he's taken ages to get to the point. He's explaining the verdict. I'm like, fucking hell, just get on with it. And then 2 court officers come into the courtroom with handcuffs by their side, and I immediately know that it's definitely going down now. And then after another 5 minutes, he eventually commits me to Young Offenders Institute originally, but which later went to adult prison.
Fuck, and actually stepping into the prison, comparing your normal life and into this new world that you're walking into, like, can you give us an insight of what that was like and how your body was reacting to that at the time.
Yeah, well, funnily enough, I don't actually come from a criminal background. I don't know anyone who's gone to prison. I went to private school when I was younger, so I'm a person who's I'm not associated with criminal life. So suddenly to be step into a world where not only is it criminal life, it's the worst people of that criminal life, and there were constant stabbings. There is constant, you know, criminal activity. It was very much out of my comfort zone. But it's like I said before, I'm mentally well prepared in a weird sort of way. So it didn't actually affect me at all. I was like, well, that's actually fine. I can deal with this. This is just a situation. There's no need to get overwhelmed. Let's just be hyper aware. Let's make some friends. Let's see what's good. And I can't lie. Like I'm very grateful for the experience. I've grown on so many levels as a result of going to prison, and I found the whole thing absolutely fascinating despite the hardship. So yeah, it was definitely out of my comfort zone, but I learned to deal with it and adapt.
What did you find fascinating?
Well, in prison, there's actually a use for every item. Prisoners are very resourceful sort of people. I actually saw a toaster be made out of 4 kettles with the top parts chopped off. So you just got the heating element of it, and then they wired it up and they started to make toast with it. And then, I mean, yeah, like I said, there's a use for every item. The way that they send messages, it's just fascinating. There's one thing that if you're on a landing above and you're the landing below, if you want to pass either a knife or drugs or whatever from that landing to the landing below, one thing you could do is tie up the item with bed sheets, put it down the loo, and flush it at the exact same time. And as it's flushed, there's a chance they can get tangled up in the pipeline, and then the person on the landing from below can pull it up from the loo. So these criminals are very intelligent people. They find ways to do things. So I found these sort of things just like so fascinating, because I felt like I was Louis Theroux or Ross Kemp, but without the cameras, just like fully in there with no artificial sort of behavior, you know, seeing all these prisoners act on their complete natural self. It was just fascinating.
You know, so being in prison in there, were you able to find friends, you know, build a secure group? Like, you know, I've watched quite a lot of prison documentaries, and they always go on about how you know, you almost have to prove yourself when you're in there, and people might try to test you and things like that. Did that happen to you?
Oh yeah, there's definitely an element of people trying to test you. I would say you got to be you got to act in a way which is not confrontational but not weak but firm, so like in the middle. But yeah, on that, you kind of need a group. You kind of need a clique in prison, because it's never a problem with just one person. It's a problem with that person and all these other boys. So you got to be, well, sort of, you got to have a network. So but for me, that was fine. I've always been quite, you know, I would like to say that I'm quite good at building connections with people. So I would work out in the gym with the Polish people, one couple in for murder, and then I was good friends with a couple of travelers. I was good friends with the Bengali YOs, so young offenders, because I was actually sharing a lot of cells with them. And yeah, I was just one of the, you know what, I think prison, I think it's over exaggerated. Like if you are a good person, you're respectful, you keep your head down, you're socially intelligent and not weak, you'll be all right. You know, it's not like soon as you step in, people have got you pinned against the wall and they're sort of trying to, you know, you just got to play it smart, and I think anyone can really survive it.
No, that's sound, man. And coming out of it, so post prison, did you said that it's made you see the world differently, but coming straight after, like you said you're happy you've gone in, but is there any regret at all there, or are you?
No regret. Not one bit of me regrets going to prison as a result of climbing the Shard. I would be happy to do it all again. It was worth every second I spent in jail, despite the hardship, and it doesn't deter me in the slightest.
No, from speaking to you, if anything, it sounds kind of the opposite. That it's the whole experience from climbing it, the journey has made you grow as a person.
Absolutely, mate. I think that's a thing to take for a lot of the listeners who are listening in this current climate. There's always a positive and a negative. So yes, this current situation is actually so fucked. You know, the Boris Johnson is currently in intensive care. We're going into recession or depression, as some like to call it, and it's a tough time for every single person out there in every single industry. But there is a positive in it. I only heard that yesterday. A friend of my family's he's been in a job for good 20 years or so, and just from stepping outside the job, being forced to stop his job, he suddenly realized that he missed all the fun things he used to do when he was outside the job, and now he's going to quit his job and he's going to pursue a different career. And I think this is the case with this. Like, this coronavirus stuff is allowing people to reflect on their life and their decisions. It's taking them out of a strict routine and allowing them to see the bigger picture. It also allows you to see, you know, your family more. Allows you maybe to take up a skill, take up a hobby. I've actually started to learn pick locking as my skill for the coronavirus. So you know, like there's positives in everything, and with regards to prison, I just immediately saw it as a positive thing. Yeah.
No, definitely, I agree with you. I think like you say right now, well, I can see it around it, my family and friends. I think it's definitely shaking up foundations and beliefs, and I think a lot of people that have belief system that might not be compatible with the world that we're going into now, they're going to find out about it, and I'll have to deal with it.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. I completely agree.
Were you going to say something there, James?
Yeah, I was gonna ask what the reaction was like after you came out of prison, because now, like, obviously, like, we stumbled across you because of all this stuff. You know, George King.
Were people messaging you? What feedback?
Yeah, like, what's the response been like?
It's been crazy, actually. So I've really actually developed a career as a result of doing the Shard. It's given me a brand, it's given me a platform, and it not only to do interviews and podcasts and radio stuff, but it's allowed me to, you know, have the potentiality to get a book published. I'm working on a Channel 4 documentary at the moment, and I'm looking at doing my own TV series come late 2020, early 2021, depending on what coronavirus has to offer. So it's opened so many doors for me, doors which I didn't think would open. But it's obviously not the reason I did the climb in the first place. But it's I'm certainly going to roll with every single thing which is going on. I'm opportunist by nature, so it's actually changed my life.
No, sick.
Nice, because you got like a lot of like national press coverage off the back of. Did you have any negative response at all from people? Or did you not really care?
I mean, I did, but I didn't, like you said, I didn't really care. And the reason I didn't care is because I'm very honest with myself. I know my weaknesses, I know my strengths. So both mentally, emotionally, physically, I know who I am. I'm honest with myself, my strengths and weakness. So for some troll or some person to make a negative comment or negative interview about me, it just doesn't affect me, because I know myself, I know what I'm worth, I know my weaknesses. So for someone to try to impose a weakness on me, it's just like, I just kind of automatically put that shutter in me. It's just like, you know, you just don't know me. So yeah, I mean, I do, but I don't care. Yeah.
Oh, nice one, nice. Because you were on Good Morning Britain.
Yes.
Twice.
Yes.
So what was that like? What was the energy from that that
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean the second one was certainly easier than the first one. It's really intense environment. Um, I mean it's really quite weird when because I actually watched Good Morning Britain and those sort of things, and I see it on the TV. I see Piers, I see Susanna Reid, and it's a completely different thing when you suddenly step onto it and you're suddenly like in that situation and you're seeing Piers Morgan right in front of you. And there's cameras there, there's lights there, really bright. It's a high pressure situation, and they don't let you finish a sentence. They just keep on going,
Mm.
keep on going. But it's an incredible buzz. It's a massive adrenaline rush. I love the interviews. I love the pressure of it. I love the intensity of it, and it keeps me going back for more. So I actually really enjoyed the experience, and again, it's allowed me to build a brand as well.
No, definitely. Like it seemed like they were trying to pressure you in there, and you definitely kept your cool 100%. And fair play to you for doing that. A lot of people
Oh,
would
thank
have
you, mate.
fucking
Appreciate
crumbled
it.
in that position. And were you prepped at all for that? Did you know? Because it definitely felt like a bit of a, when I watched it back anyway, there's a bit of a hostile environment between the
Yeah.
way they were questioning and phrasing things that they were asking you. Were you prepped for that at all, or did you?
Not really. I think that's kind of the way they do it. They kind of want to hit you off guard. They
Mm.
kind of want to be in control. But part of me kind of knew that, yeah, that they would try and go. I mean, I knew that this would be tough, like, so I was kind of prepared, but no one told me, if you see
Mm.
what I mean.
No, good. Cool. Well, we're coming up to our last 10 minutes of the podcast. We've got some set lockdown questions that we've been asking all our guests. So
Mm.
we'll run through those with you if that's all right.
That's all right, mate. Yeah.
Boom. James, I'll let you kick those off.
All right, man. So if you can be locked down with any two people, dead or alive, for this pandemic, who would you pick?
Oh, it's a great question, mate. So I'd have to be. Oh, that's a good question. Okay, Philip Petit, the person who walked from Twin Towers on a tightrope. He's the most fascinating individuals I could sit there and chinwag with him for as long as possible about fear, about challenges, about the Twin Towers stunt. I could speak with him for hours. And then my second one, I don't know if you know Joe Rogan. He actually holds a big podcast.
Yeah.
I think he is an extremely intelligent and clever. Well, he's intelligent in a way which is real. He's a very real individual, and he's not afraid to sort of say things which are out of the usual. And he doesn't care if his brand is affected if he takes psychedelics or smokes weed on set. So there's something about this individual which is very real, something which I can learn a lot from him. So yeah, those are my two people I'd like to spend lockdown with.
Nice.
Boom. Sick, solid answer. If you could recommend one key book for our listeners to dive into in this isolation, what is it and why?
I'm going to get a few 2 seconds. Okay, so this book is called What Doesn't Kill Us. What Doesn't Kill Us.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like we touched on with Wim Hof. It's basically everything about that. And essentially, it's about why us humans need to go out into the elements, experience challenges, experience cold, experience toughness, and how it affects not only our emotion but our mentality and our biology as well. And it's just something in which, I mean, it's a bestseller. It's a great book by Scott Carney and forwarded by Wim Hof, and I highly recommend it.
Boom.
Nice. What's the next question, man? I've not opened it.
Right, let me tell. So question number 3. So what's the first thing you'll do when isolation's over?
Well, I'm actually recovering from a shoulder surgery, so I'm hopefully, let's say the isolation is done, my shoulder's recovered, I've got things to do. I've got projects planned abroad. I want to get out this country. I actually want to just travel. I want to travel. That's my main thing. I haven't had the opportunity yet in my life to properly travel. You know, I've gone abroad, but haven't, you know, traveled. So yeah, traveling is going to be my thing, definitely.
Sick.
Nice. And I remember the last question now. Do you have a goal for this isolation period that you want to chalk off whilst you're locked down?
Yeah, definitely. So I've taken the ice baths really seriously. I'm on a PB of 25 minutes. I want to get to half an hour. I've been incrementally progressing 1 minute each and every 2 minutes each and every day. And I'm doing a lot of the Wim Hof breathing method, writing a lot, reading a lot. So for me, this is like my MOT. You know, I'm sort of getting, you know, re-engaging the engine, re-engaging my mind, trying to grow from the experience. So yeah, that's what I'm doing. I feel I can I can upgrade, level up as a result of this isolation.
Boom,
Nice.
man. George, it's been absolutely awesome talking to you. Thanks for making the time for speaking to us this morning. If people want to follow you, they want to message you, see what you're up to, where can they go? Do you have any social medias or anything like that?
I've got Instagram at SHARD Climber, so you can reach me there. And most of my content involves stunt climbing and hopefully base jumping in the near future.
Sick.
Nice
Cool.
one.
Well,
Thanks a lot
over and
again.
out, George. We appreciate you talking to us.
Thanks so much, mate. I really appreciate it. It was good.
And if you just hang on for a few minutes as well, we'll just have a quick chat with you offline off the podcast.
Yeah.
Sound?